Welcome back to the Code Ryan podcast. Today, I'm joined by Harris. You also have a YouTube channel, Coding Cleverly. So very much so looking forward to this conversation here. Hopefully there's no technical issues or anything like that as we kind of got things sorted out prior to the podcast here. But I think a good place for us to start here is just kind of what is your kind of tech story so far? What kind of led you into web development, coding, and all that sort of thing?
Thank you so much for that nice intro. My name is Haris. I'm, actually the creator of Coding Cleverly. I was basically, very small when I started getting into tech. I loved, playing video games. I was the average kind of guy who used to, always get obsessed with new technologies and, whatever that comes, our way. I used to have a Nintendo DS. I was a big fan of Mario, Sonic, and Ben 10. And so when I was in university, I just planned to, pursue software engineering. Didn't know what it is. I just thought it was cool. But I knew that, I'm going to go somewhere in computer science because I'm actually good at that subject. I remember when I was in high school, I used to be the best in computers. And I used to think that's the easiest subject in the whole, school system. So that was my top subject with math. And, so I thought, I think computer science is good. And then when I went to coding, I was a whole new world where, basically you could do anything you want. And I was fascinated by the fact where you could just basically build an entire business through your mind. That's the thing that attracted me, like all these big businesses like Facebook, Twitter, and they all just started from small projects, like folders on computer systems. Like Mark Zuckerberg says that he started with PHP. This is crazy. So, that's when I said, wow, this is, something really cool. Why didn't I know this before? But, not too late. I'm still excited about it. And I feel like this is where we're heading towards, whole new computer science realm. And it's going to be really important for the future.
Absolutely. And that's one of my favorite aspects of software development as well, is that you can build something from nothing and create like a pretty incredible application, really all on your own if you understand how everything works across like the entire stack and stuff. So you kind of gravitated towards computer software engineering. It was something that you were good at. Where did you start in terms of like a programming language? Did you start right into web development, or what was kind of your entry into coding?
Yes. Like everyone, you don't basically start very easily, and it just doesn't go really quickly as expected. It does. There are so many obstacles, hurdles, and until today, I still make mistakes, and that's common, and that should be. Without mistakes, I wouldn't believe you're a developer. You have to make mistakes if you're a good developer. And it's like unreal if you're like saying like everything is going well. There's always going to be some issue, and you're going to have to fix it, or you're going to have to learn it, or you're going to have to delay, and then go back to it. So that's basically software engineering. It's a continuous growth field, and where you just keep growing, keep learning. And regarding my first ever technology, I started with C language. It was just theory that time. But when I actually started coding was a C++, and that was not for web development. That was just, for my university. I was a major in software engineering, so I had to complete assignments and, small command line based projects. I used to really be really bad at, try to finishing up object-oriented programming, database structures. And, what clicked with Coding Cleverly is that when I was learning PF, programming fundamentals in C++, that's when I started the YouTube channel. So I was learning at the same time I was creating the videos. So that's where how the channel also started back in 2020.
Gotcha. And are you glad that you started with I'll call it kind of a more challenging programming language like C++? Are you glad that you started in that area? Or like if you had complete control, would have you started right into something like JavaScript or hopping right into that? Or where would have you started, or where would you recommend someone start today?
To be honest, that time when I was in C++, it was one of my dreams to learn JavaScript. I used to think, JavaScript, that's going to be something awesome. But of course, I was a total beginner and I didn't know that much about, React. And now there was a lot of complications, and then like there's so much things in your mind. And I wouldn't recommend like a beginner to just start going all over the board and start data science, machine learning, and all this stuff. So go really basics. So I was learning C++, and that's basically what my professors were teaching. So I couldn't just start learning JavaScript. I was learning Python on a Coursera course because it was lockdown going on. So Python was super simple, and C++ was trying to understand, give me the concepts under the hood, how things work, how memory works, how pointers work. So there was a deep, low-level understanding of how computer programs work that really helped me solidify my concepts. And I think that was a really good start. My OG fans who follow me from day one know me because I'm a C++ creator. So, there's Caleb Curry. I'm not sure if you're familiar with. He actually ranked one of my channels where I was pretty new that time, and I was just so lucky to have my channel listed as top 5 C++ developers on YouTube, which I don't know how he did it, but he just did. So I'm actually known for C++, but now I actually shifted towards so many other realms as well, like machine learning. I did like that earlier with live streams. Now I'm going more of web development. So, there's kind of a lot of things going on.
Very interesting progression there as well. I almost feel like it's more common for someone to start maybe with a loose programming language like JavaScript or Python, and then kind of work towards like machine learning or C++ or stuff like that. And it sounds like you kind of went C++ first, then like machine learning, and then more into web development. Is there a particular reason that you kind of wanted to go the web development route kind of as of late?
So the thing is, you could basically learn anything on the internet. I mean, it's not like compulsory you have to be in a college majoring in some kind of profession like software engineering or computer science. This is completely like for those people who some come up to me and say, hey, do I really need a bachelor's degree? I always say, upscale your skills. If you could get a degree, that's really good. It's a plus point. But, the major thing that, is required is your skills and the level of problem solving you could do. It's not the technology that you master, but the problems that you could actually solve, regardless of what technology you use. So that's really important. And I was, starting with C++, and why I was shifting towards different things was because I was enrolled in a software engineering, bachelor's program, and they had different semesters. So in every semester, there was a new thing that we had to learn. So it's not like we were going deeply involved inside one thing. Like suppose we started with C++, intro to programming, and then we had object-oriented programming, second or third semester, and then fourth semester, data structures and algorithms. And then, we kind of had to go to Java when we were learning when we were learning web development, which is crazy. I mean, why would you learn Java with web development? And we did that. We had JSP, Java servlets, Tomcat, Apache servers. It was crazy. And one of my professors, used to make us write the code in a text editor. Those notepad files, not on VS Code, notepad. So you have to write on that because, you could get more practice through it. So, I'm thankful for all of that process because that really did help out at the end. And yeah, I've been shifting over there and there because of my, course, my bachelor program. But I was also learning through Codecademy, one of the best resources on the internet. Coursera was also one. And, now I would say Free Code Camp and so many other channels out there on YouTube especially have so much that you could actually learn from.
Yep, absolutely. And my background is I'm self-taught. I did go to college for software engineering or computer science. And most of the resources I used were the ones you listed, like Coursera, Codecademy, Free Code Camp. And like Coursera is pretty cool because like I was taking courses from the University of Michigan and like University of Arizona and different courses like that taught by, actual computer science professors, which for me was really good to kind of gain that kind of peek into, okay, what is kind of the curriculum look like for a computer science student going through a similar program here. And I think that, kind of some things that you mentioned there, like I'm sure at the time, maybe it was kind of annoying to do stuff in like just a text editor, not like VS Code and maybe some of the data structures and algorithm stuff. But I'm sure that, as you go and maybe as you even looked for jobs and stuff, like a lot of interviews will actually be in just like a Google Doc or a text editor, and they won't actually be in VS Code to where you're going to have all this code completion and it's going to catch little syntax errors for you to where, if you make those mistakes in a text editor and you're not kind of looking for them, it could kind of throw you off in an interview. So I can totally see how that kind of helped you later on.
Yep, that did definitely.
Awesome. And where are kind of your interests now, or where do you see yourself kind of going in the future? It sounds like you've kind of played around with a bunch of different stuff, whether it was, C++, machine learning stuff, web development stuff. Do you think that web development is kind of your favorite out of the bunch, or where do you kind of see yourself heading in the future, and why do you kind of like going that route?
Did you see that? Did you watch Ben 10 when you were younger?
I did not know.
No. So are you familiar with Swampfire? I don't know if you know.
No.
Not sure. But there's actually like a meme, like a lot of people are just, selecting career paths in computer science. And then there's like data analytics, machine learning, cybersecurity. And then at the end, there's like full stack developer. And then, they just bang it there. So without any knowledge, people like just go there, full stack development. And with I would never call myself an expert. I always called myself a learner every time. And like I said, as of what I have, realized after all these years, like 4 or 5 years, I think that maybe full stack development is pretty much safe. If you're just like an Android developer or an iOS developer for a mobile application, or maybe you're just you're a Python developer just solving scripts, I think it's better to have a complete package on basically you're unlocked with a full stack development career path, which you're safe. You're safe with backend. You know how to code in the front end, so you kind of know everything. How websites work, how the browser renders things, and I believe if you're actually a good web developer, you could actually go easily to mobile development. You could easily go to data science. You could easily go to any other realm, right? So that's basically my take there. I don't know what you think about that.
I totally agree. And when I first started, I was more so thinking about like what's the quickest path to getting a job. So to do that, I mostly focused on just like front end development. And it was like, hey, front end developer jobs exist. So I'm just going to focus on this and try to get a front end developer job. So that's what I did. But in that job, it was also at a startup, and I've been there for a little over 4 years now. And I've been working in a lot of small startups. You're going to just get forced into the entire stack. So the entire time I've been there, I've been working with Django, as well as working with AWS, as well as like setting up background processes and cron jobs in the background, and like all this stuff that I had no idea about when I was focused on front end development. But now that I've kind of developed those full stack skills of AWS, Django, even working with Postgres and database visualizers and just across the entire stack, I feel very confident in my ability to kind of really go in any realm down the road. And, if we get to a point to where front-end developer jobs start to get more scarce, I'm confident that I can go into, an AWS job or a Django job or something like that as well. So I think that when it comes to giving yourself a lot of ability to just get jobs, full stack development is definitely hard to beat.
It's really good because you basically know how the whole life cycle of an application works, right? You know how it starts, it knows how to grow, you know how it looks like in the front, in the back, how it ships. So I think it's pretty good. These days, I'm actually working on a series where I'm making a full stack application. So, every day, there's a new feature, and basically the videos are being scheduled. So every day there's a new video uploaded. And at the end of the video, I always try to deploy the video and show everyone that this is how you want to do it. I used to make the mistake where I used to make the application, but it wasn't deployed. This was one of my mistakes. So I would recommend deploying any kind of project you make so that recruiters could see it. You could publish it on your portfolios, websites, and say, hey, this is one of the projects that I created. You could basically test it out, play with it, log in with your Google account or something, and do like that.
Yep, absolutely. I think that it's great to be able to build just like the front end UI of a website and understand JavaScript and CSS, but you are going to make yourself so much more of a valuable asset to a company if you also understand how deployments work, even if you can understand like a testing infrastructure. I know like I've used Cypress and kind of set that up, and then using like CI/CD workflows to make sure that Cypress runs every time you push a new commit and stuff like that. So like there's a ton of other areas that you can add value. And I would say, these days, from what I hear from a lot of people commenting on my videos and stuff like that, it's like a lot of people just starting out right now are having a little bit harder of a time getting a job. But I think that if you understand some of these other processes like deploying applications and testing frameworks and even getting into some full stack stuff, you're going to just increase your chances that much more of getting a job. So kind of along those same lines, what do you kind of prefer to deploy your projects with these days? Or does it kind of depend on the project and your tech stack, or what route do you find yourself kind of going when it comes to deployment?
I mean, I know that there's really complicated deployment things out there, like you were mentioning. But now I see like there's so many service providers like Vercel, Netlify, Render, Railway. These platforms are just so simple. You click on it, link your GitHub repo, you add in your environment variables, push and click, 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 and then you have it deployed. So sometimes it feels pretty neat having these kind of development softwares for you to just put your GitHub repos or whatever, link it, and then have them deployed. So these are the tools that I'm using these days.
Absolutely. And I personally love Vercel. Like anytime I create like personal projects for my YouTube channel and stuff, I almost always deploy it with Vercel just because it just makes it so easy. I know for my company, we have like kind of pretty complex tech stack to where we have like Kubernetes nodes, and then we build our deployment with Terraform and kind of go down that whole rabbit hole, which I definitely don't think someone needs to get into that, get a job at necessarily, but those might be skills that you kind of develop as you're in a job and stuff. Unless you just like love that aspect of the tech stack, then there's jobs out there for like DevOps and stuff like that. But very cool, man. So I think that gives me a really good kind of background of your kind of tech journey so far. And it sounds like full stack development is kind of maybe the route that you're going for now, at least, until maybe other kind of interests spring to mind. So kind of maybe stepping back a little bit, when you kind of got into full stack development, is there anything in particular that jumps out to you as like something that was particularly challenging, or something that you had like really hard time learning, or anything like that that comes to mind?
Yes, I remember my first ever framework that I used was Django. And I remember I learned it online on YouTube because it was one video from Mosh, programming with Mosh. So I was learning the Django framework, and to be honest, when I was just a beginner writing just a single file like main.py, write a Python file and command line Python main.py, and it runs hello world or something like that. When I started Django, there was like a whole bunch of files, and actually confused a lot of developers. Like, why is there so much things going on? And when you just work with one single file, and if a framework brings everything with you, there's like a manage.py file for running. There's a settings.py file for the brain of the application. There's so many apps. They're like app folders, individual, right? There's a completely different project folder which has the the initializations, and that kind of is challenging at first, seeing so many files and folders. But I was looking at that video, and the first time I did it, obviously I wasn't feeling really comfortable and confident that I actually did something. I felt like there was just too much. Maybe there's too much syntax and too much boiler that I have to understand. But then when I kept doing it, I kept doing day by day. It's not like I just did one and then I just said, okay, that's it, I'm a full, a Django developer. I didn't say like that. I kept doing it. So daily I kept reading more articles, maybe looking at one particular feature on Django, and then kind of like consistently doing it every single day until I felt a little bit confident that I could pull this off my own. So yes, it was that's basically how I achieved that solution.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that one kind of tricky aspect of a lot of frameworks when you start is like a lot of them will kind of give you a boilerplate template to start. But oftentimes it's like, man, there's this settings folders and all these like installed apps. Like, what the heck are all these? And then you have like views and serializers and models. And it's like a ton of stuff to kind of piece together. And it can be kind of overwhelming. It's like, you'll see a tutorial and someone that's been using Django for a while, and they'll be like, hey, you just do this really quickly. It's so easy. And they make it look so easy. And, little do you know that only gets easy after you have spent, like you said, a lot of consistent day after day kind of working with it and slowly piecing things together and understanding things. And I think the same stuff can be applied for like learning Next.js, to where it's like, hey, when you first start a Next.js project, it can be kind of confusing just how like file-based routing works and how the API folder works and kind of different route handlers. And now you have the introduction of server components versus client components and server actions and all these different features. It can be really challenging at first, but I think that, if you give yourself some time and you just continuously like start with like a really small project, and maybe you have to look up a lot of articles and a lot of little stuff to kind of figure some stuff out, you'll slowly kind of build on that. And then your Next.js project, it's going to go a little bit better. And then your next one is going to go a little bit better. And then before you know it, you're building full stack projects and you're deploying them and you're just doing a really good job with things. So I think that that's a really good perspective to have, is like, you're not going to understand everything right away, but every kind of subsequent project you do, you're going to just get a little bit better at things.
Yes, that is beautifully way to say it. And it's regarding, you talked about Next.js. I also started Next.js last year. What do you recommend a beginner? Should the person start from Next.js, or should they learn how MERN stack works or mean stack?
Where I would start is I would probably start with, of course, learning JavaScript first and having the fundamentals of JavaScript down. And then following JavaScript, I would then learn React and get React down pretty well. And then from there, I would say you can go to Next.js and start learning Next.js. I wouldn't necessarily say you need to learn necessarily like how Express works and how even how Node.js works too specifically, just because Next.js kind of abstracts some of that away and you don't need to get into it too much. Now, that said, if you do know how like the MERN stack works and you do know how Node.js works really well and you're familiar with databases, that's going to help you with Next.js. So I think all this stuff kind of pieces together, but I wouldn't necessarily say that stuff is a prerequisite to Next.js. How do you kind of feel about that?
I do kind of say that. When I started, I was actually trying to master my MERN stack ability. So I was pretty novice in the MERN as well. So I wanted to be good. And then, when I jumped into Next.js, I thought that there was like just an upper layer. So like, level 1 and then level 2 is Next.js or something. So it's like an abstraction. It doesn't, talk about the server backend folder, like what normally we build for MERN stacks, like the Express backend with, the Node.js backend with the Express framework. We don't do that in Next.js. It has serverless APIs, and it's completely under the hood. And, like JavaScript mastery talks about it. It's like the future for React. And in the documentation now, React uses Next.js as its framework. So, yeah, I mean, when I started it, I kind of like felt that you need React knowledge. You need the knowledge of how JavaScript works. That's very essential. And then you're kind of familiar with how to build maybe basic React applications. Then you can move on to Next.js, right? Or maybe it's just really good to have maybe a MERN stack also understood. Just try to understand MERN stack. I wouldn't say learn Django and then go to Next.js. That's completely different. That's Python. You need to learn JavaScript. JavaScript is the king for browsers. I mean, web development. So you can't ignore that.
Yep, absolutely. I would say understand JavaScript, understand how like the DOM works and how kind of the web browser works. At least fundamentally, you don't need to know every nuance of like DOM manipulation, as well as kind of how every single browser feature works. I definitely don't know all that stuff to this day, so I don't think that's required. but knowing JavaScript, knowing React, and then moving to Next.js is reasonable to me. I think that, when building a Next.js app, you're probably looking to build some sort of full stack application. So in doing that, having some sort of knowledge of how databases work and maybe your kind of database of choice, and then also having some sort of knowledge of how like authentication works and how to manage user sessions and stuff like that is probably going to be a pretty important aspect of building that full stack application. But, there's like we've talked about before, a lot of that stuff can be really hard at first, but if you just, take it step by step, you build a full stack application, and maybe at the start, you just do something super basic, like maybe a single table in your database, and you're just doing like basic CRUD on that database. That's your first app. And then from there, you can kind of slowly build on that over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm just curious right now. When you build a Next.js app, remember when you have to store the data in like a global state? We use Redux toolkit for that in MERN stack development. I hope I think you're familiar with that. But in Next.js, what do you basically do that? I mean, people these days are using some other tools. I mean, there's so many tools out there now with global state management. But now, what are people generally using for Next.js apps?
Yeah, it's tough. A lot of people use a lot of different things. So I think a lot of people still use Redux to this day. I know a lot of people try to kind of just get away with using context. So just React context to share state across your application. And Next.js does have a cool feature to where it automatically deduplicates your data requests. So you can make the same like data requests in multiple components, and it's going to deduplicate those. And then you can have that state across multiple components without worrying about like making a bunch of network requests. So, I mean, that's not necessarily sharing state across your application, but it can maybe prevent some areas to where you might need to share state. I personally have experienced using Recoil, which is kind of React's, I think it's still in beta. I'm not sure if they've released it for production yet, but it's kind of a React's attempt at global state management. And I personally really like Recoil because it's very React-like. Like, yes, you don't need to set up like reducers and actions and all the kind of stuff that you need to do. Yes, oh my gosh, all that stuff with Redux, you literally just call a hook, like use recoil state, and that is global state in your application. And of course, it has selectors and persistent state and all that stuff as well that can definitely get kind of tricky for beginners and stuff. But I personally tend to reach for that. But, if I was building a large production application or something, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I would reach for Redux or something else. So what do you kind of like to use? Maybe Redux, just based on your experience with it?
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't. I mean, I saw YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels that talking about new things on. I'm following those so many pages, and it's pretty useful. Like in less than a minute, you know how to deploy something on Netlify or something like that. So it's kind of cool now these days. Like you just get information really quickly. And the other day I was looking at global state management, and they were talking about Recoil. So what you were talking about, I don't have experience, but I was using Redux, and I feel like people are trying to shift towards something more simpler, like just like how the Fetch API works. And then there's Axios, the third party library to even do the same kind of RESTful API requests. So I mean, start with the native thing, like Fetch API, know how it works, and then you could actually use Axios, and you feel like when you're using Fetch and mastering it, Axios would seem so easy for you, just automatically. It's instinctively no. That is, that's even easier than the Fetch API, where you have to actually go and do the callbacks and all those other things. You have to, do the other in .next and whatever. But in terms of global state management, I'm using Redux Toolkit and Redux Persist because I was watching a YouTube course, Sahan's YouTube channel, and it was an 11-hour course, and he was using global state management. Feel like it's pretty old. It's there for a long time, and it's still widely used. And these new things are also being used, but it's just generally what I'm using at the moment.
Yep. And I would say that there's, nothing wrong with Redux in my opinion. I think that compared to Recoil, there is quite a bit more boilerplate and just more overall code. And it's maybe a little bit less simple than using something like Recoil. But then again, Redux Toolkit has a bunch of different features that someone might find really useful. And it can provide like a really nice structure to your global state management as well. So there's kind of trade-offs with a lot of this stuff. So to kind of wrap up on here, we're coming up on time, but maybe just two kind of final questions. So the first question, what would you give for advice, just like your best advice for someone just starting to like enter web development and just starting to look to code? What would be like your kind of top advice to that individual?
So what I would recommend, since I'm also teaching online, I'm freelancing as well. So build your online portfolio. Start getting things done. Like suppose make a schedule and do this consistently for every day. I wouldn't say take breaks. I mean, you could say, okay, just 1-2 hours per day, but try to do it every day. And for a month, after 30 days, you will see progress. So you start not with something you have no idea. Like I don't know what I'm going to do today. I have no idea what I'm going to do tomorrow. Have it every pre-planned. You have something written down, and step by step, you want to do in the 1st of January, you want to basically start with career path number 1, career path number 2, the sub-modules. So for that particular reason, I would say enroll into courses like on Udemy, Coursera, Codecademy. Codecademy has really amazing courses as well. So try to go with that full stack career development path on Codecademy. That's one of the best. So start with that, and it also tells you progress, like what you did, percentages, and also it gives you tests, daily, weekly tests you could take just to see your skill set. And they give you a project at the end that you build for every single module you complete. And those projects that you make, do not just keep them locally on your computer. Put them on GitHub. Make your GitHub profile. Make a LinkedIn. And then constantly upload things on those profiles. Constantly tell that you're doing things. Keep an active voice. Once you do that, you will automatically get reached out with so many people. I've seen that just making videos. I don't know how you reached me out, but I was just constantly making videos. So I was kind of interested. Like, I really wanted to know like how you found me. But this is the thing. Like these days, I'm just constantly doing my work, consistently doing the grind. Every single day, I'm making a video, and I'm coding every day. And automatically you'll find opportunities your way. Just keep doing good things. I hope this is the advice.
And to find you, I kind of forget how specifically I found you, as I'm regularly having podcast guests on and I'm constantly like searching for guests and stuff. But generally ways that I find guests is like if someone does a course on Free Code Camp, or if someone is on someone else's podcast, I'll listen to it and then I'll be like, hey, this guy sounds like they know their stuff. Or also I might just generally search like React or Next.js or stuff like that into YouTube, see what YouTube channels comes up, and then I'll check out that YouTube channel, see if their content like looks good. It seems like they are making sense and sound like they know what they're talking about. And I think that's probably the route that I found you, but I can't quite remember how exactly I found you.
I did do Code Camp videos. So I have 3 videos on Free Code Camp. Yeah, I collaborated with them.
So that definitely could be it. So, but how about for someone that, maybe they're already kind of a few years into this, they're looking to like continuously keep improving their skills. You mentioned for that beginner to keep coding every day and to keep moving forward with that. I'm guessing maybe similar advice for the person that's a handful of years into their career and looking to level up. Well, what would your advice be for someone just looking to kind of level up in their career and keep improving their skills as a programmer?
These days, kind of like, I feel like there's too much online presence. And now if you don't keep yourself online, it would be a little challenging for other people to find you. And, having like maybe a Twitter account tweeting about your software development journey, have an Instagram page where you show, different reels about what you're doing. And then profile building, personal branding, making portfolio websites and getting followers. I think this all does help out at the end. They will give you a lot of opportunities, DMs, messages, requests, and even job offers. So I mean, I know a lot of talented individuals, and I know they're amazing, but they're not online. And I always encourage them to be online. Make your profiles, say that I'm active, and then, of course you'll get your opportunities. So that's my advice there.
Yep, I think that's great advice, and I think that it can definitely be helpful for like if even if you apply for a job and you can put on your resume that, hey, I have this YouTube channel that I'm constantly, producing content and I'm showing that I am actively trying to continue to get better and I'm learning new technologies and I really enjoy this stuff. I think that looks really good for people as well. And then you also have the aspect of if you're producing content, you're constantly learning new things. And I know that for me, one of the best ways for me to learn a new technology is to start creating a YouTube series on that technology because it really forces me to dive into the documentation, learn how it works, and then explaining it to someone that doesn't know it also kind of exposes what I don't and do know. And then I just, continuously kind of improve my skills there. So
That was kind of the philosophy I used to build my also channel. When I was learning, these courses, I started teaching, and I felt like when I was even before when I was, coding, I was teaching math and science. I used to love teaching. So when I teach others, I basically learn even more. I also know my shortcomings. So that's when, I started pulling these, YouTube videos as well. I started learning and enhancing my skills to another level. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, absolutely. Well, where can people kind of go find you? I know that you have your YouTube channel, Coding Cleverly. I'll make sure that that is linked. Is there anything else that I should make sure to link to where people can find you online?
Yeah, you could actually follow me on LinkedIn. My name is Haris Iftikhar. I'll share you my link there. And yeah, I have freelancing platforms these days. I'm working. So if anyone like needs a full scale application, I opened up my software agency. So I build software solutions, and I'm not alone. I have like a team. So I have another 2 or 3, passionate developers. They're really cool, skilled, and whenever there's like a client request needs like a website done, needs like an app built. So we're here to solve that. So, it's codecrusher.co, the agency website.
Awesome. Well, I'll try to make sure everything is linked in the description so people can find a easy time to find all that stuff. So thank you so much for coming on today, Harris. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.